Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Thank you so much for joining January 2023 board meeting. This is the first board meeting of the year. And before we get started, I would like to go ahead and take the vote for the people that I see on my screen and whosoever is present for the board meeting. I can go by the name that I see on my screen. Grant.
Yep, here.
Avi.
Yes, sorry about that.
Okay. Bill.
I'm here.
Matt.
I'm here.
Mark.
Present.
Glenn.
Yes.
And a yes from my side. I can see Lauren Thomas, Lisa Jones, Mark Hobbs, Spiros. We have Andrew, we have Dawn. And 1 second. Bill.
I'm sorry, are you calling my name again?
Yes.
All right, well, I'm here a second time then.
Okay, sorry. Thank you so much. I thought I missed you because your name again popped up. It just came on the screen. Maybe you turned off the video.
Yeah, you already called me.
Yeah, thank you. So before we get into the board meeting, I would like to just take a vote on the previous board meeting minutes. I hope all of you got the chance to check out that board meeting minutes. Anyone has any questions?
Nope, none.
Okay. Going once, twice, thrice. So I will go ahead and start the vote. So I would like to inform the new board members, Matt and Mark, that this is how we start the board meeting. We start with our attendance. Then we move ahead and take the votes on the previous board meeting minutes. And then we start the business call to order and other things. So for this month, we are taking the votes for the previous board meeting minutes. You can say yes if you've got the chance to read. You can say you can abstain from it because this is your first time. So it's on you. Now, I will start with the people that I see on my screen. Bill.
Yes.
Grant.
Yes.
Matt.
Yes.
Avi.
Yes.
Mark.
Abstain.
Glenn.
Yes.
And a yes from my side. Andrew,
Mm-hmm.
over to you.
Okay. According to Robert's Rules of Order, you're supposed to do the officers first, but I'm happy to go through the reporting and then we'll do the officers. Which way would you like to go?
We would like to go with the officers first.
Okay. As chair from 2022, you get to do the first chair vote. And then once the new chair is elected or re-elected as the case may be, then essentially that new chair takes over the meeting from that point on. Then the remaining officer positions are done, and then we'll do the officers. We'll do the reports.
Sure. Let me stop the screen share and we can get started. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. We're going to start with the board elections for this year, January 2023. And we're starting with the chair nomination first. So who would like to run for chair position?
I'd like to nominate myself.
Anyone else?
Myself.
Anyone else?
Sorry, I think I
Okay.
heard someone else's voice.
It's Grant and Mark Curfey.
Okay.
So we have Grant Ongus and Mark Curfey running for the board position. So let's start with Mark. Mark, your proposal that why do you want to be the chair?
I ran on a manifesto of change and was voted in by, I had the largest vote block for people. As part of that manifesto, I told people why they should and why they shouldn't vote for me. So the largest block in voting voted with me for that change. I was the person that founded OWASP. I believe that I've got the track record of making that change. And yeah, therefore believe that that chair role should be me.
Do we have any questions for Mark? I'll take it as a no. Grant, over to you.
Yeah, I've spent the last 3 years trying to move OWASP in the right direction. And I think that as your chair, I can do that. I can move OWASP into the new future that Mark is trying to bring us to, but in a way that retains the essence of the foundation, retains us as a community organization.
And what change would you like? So this is a question for both of you. What change would you like to bring in? How differently do you see OWASP working in your leadership? We can go with Mark first and then Grant.
Look, I laid out all of the change in the manifesto that is there. It is very significant. If we want to go through it, it's going to take about an hour, but that is the reason why it was all laid out in the manifesto. I know everyone had an opportunity to read that before the votes. Fundamentally, I believe there's vast amounts of red tape. There is not enough change that is happening at OWASP. It's become apathetic. Things that are broken, everyone knows that are broken, and they just sit by and let those broken things continue and happen because no one has an appetite to tackle them. Grant, my question to you is, if you spent 3 years trying to get that change, why hasn't that change happened? That makes me concerned for the future of OWASP, to be direct and to be blunt. I think the funding model fundamentally needs to change. OWASP is not being able to have an impact while other projects have, like the OpenSSF, as an example, been able to raise a lot of money, raise a lot of impact very, very fast. And so there's a change that is from the way that OWASP operates, from the board level down, to the way the community operates, the way the funding operates, and I believe that things need to change.
Grant?
Well, I agree with your sentiments on things needing to change, Mark. The example of the OpenSSF is a really good one. There are places for organizations like the OpenSSF where the board seats are sold to sponsors so that they can direct make the changes to the direction of the foundation that they want to see. I don't believe that is what OWASP is. OWASP is about the community. And there is a good reason that the OWASP way of managing is different to that of OpenSSF. Now, I do believe that we have to deal with what our relationships with our sponsors is like, and that we have to come up with a corporate strategy, a strategy for interfacing with these large organizations that have the money, that use the projects that we build. But I don't believe that needs to be in the same format that OpenSSF has it.
If that's the case, Grant, then OWASP will always be funded by individuals paying $50 a year. The large corporate sponsors are not only sources of revenue, but they are influential in the industry. They are also the people that can address OWASP's mission of improving software security. Without their engagement, OWASP doesn't have the ability to do that. The model that OSSF has is both a combination of giving people a seat at the table and getting a large amount of revenue in return for it, and also enabling community participation. It's the same governance model that CNCF has done. And that model, like it or not, has had a very, very large impact during the time when OWASP has been unable to do it. So I fundamentally disagree that is the right approach forward, but that was one of the reasons why I'm running for change, right?
I think that underlines the differences between Mark and I.
Sure.
I also have a
Anyone
question
has
for
any
both
questions?
of you. So, we are again very focused, on the same mode of operation, actually, right? We have the one side Grant who wants to continue and I mean, you know, improve the things that were already there and present as issues. We have Mark who wants to do things very well, like more differently. But I'm wondering, because we're also bringing up this discussion of OpenSSF and basically how they are dealing with, you know, their community is through projects. So how are you guys actually, you know, gonna help the projects in OWASP? I mean, I already heard a bit from Mark, you know, referring to possible things we can do, but could you maybe dive a bit better and deeper into it? Like, how are you actually gonna help projects like ZAP and all the other awesome projects that we have out there?
Projects are incredibly underfunded, and without money, you can't invest and make change. When Simon Bennett posted on the internet that he needed to find a job, when he is the core author of one of the most successful security tools that have ever been produced, my heart sank. It was one of the reasons why I ran. That is fundamentally broken. We don't have a portfolio of tools. We've underinvested. We don't have a secure coding guidance. We have projects that are sat in a GitHub repo that are 13 years old and haven't been touched for 10 years old, which means that we're not doing the community the right service. So to carry on doing the same things, expecting a different result, is not something that's going to work. The board needs to provide leadership around the types of projects that are important, the types of projects that you want the community to line up under. It needs to provide the resources to make that happen. And that includes funding, but it's not only funding. And that means that, you know, everyone gets the benefit in the true open source way of how that happens. That's what I believe needs to happen with projects. And that needs to be started with a clean out of a lot of the stuff that we know from running the user experience is causing people significant challenges in both consuming OWASP. It reflects very badly on the OWASP brand, and frankly puts a lot of the great quality projects, SKF, ZAP, dependency checks, Cyclone DX, all of the things that are, you know, held up, puts them all into the thing and detracts from it. So there is tactical immediate work that has to happen with a sense of urgency. And then there's much longer things that need to happen to change the long-time steering of where things are going.
So to answer your question, Glenn, yes, I agree that our projects need work. They need someone focused on them. They need someone to ensure that we have got the right support that projects need. In fact, Spiros is here today because I've invited him to come and ask the board for some funding to get some work done that he's trying to do within his project. I think probably the biggest difference in the approach that Mark wants to take and the approach that I want to take to this problem is that I don't think that we need to throw away projects, just because they're one of two or three in a similar vein, or because they're not updated as recently as yesterday. Or because they're no longer valid, because they're still reference materials. They're still part of the history of our foundation. And I also don't want to fund that by selling out the foundation to our sponsors.
Well, let's just be clear, no one's selling out any foundation to a sponsor. That's not what OSSF does. That's an incorrect statement to say that. I think it's inconceivable that a project that values quality would keep a tool around that hasn't been touched for 13 years, that hasn't been touched for 10 years, and that was created 13 years ago. That is a SaaS tool that when someone Googles OWASP SaaS, they come across that tool. If you think we should keep those projects around, yes, unfortunately, we have a totally different conception of what things are. We have currently OWASP top 10s that are nothing short of vendors' sell sheets. They've been produced. They should not be kept around. Things need to be held accountable. You don't hold things accountable and you let everyone participate in however they want, you're going to wind up satisfying no one. And that's not the way that this should be, because you won't have the impact that it could have.
Maybe another question. what do you guys think if you have like you can achieve what you want to achieve, and as a chair, like how would OWASP look like in your future compared to, for example, like OpenSF or other organizations? Like, what would be like the difference between us and them, for example?
Well, let me take that first. I don't think it's an us and them. I think that it's not a competition of communities, but it's how can each person have the greatest impact. I think there should be a relationship to work closely with them and figure out what they can do great, what OWASP can do great, and how those two things can collaborate. There's a huge amount of things to learn from both. OWASP has a great grassroots community. OSSS has a great top-down community. There are things that both of those two things can learn to achieve. But you have to have a plan. You have to have leadership. Otherwise, you have the lunatics running the asylum. And that model, lunatics running the asylum, is a well-known product management phrase, which basically means that you don't have structure and eventually you wind up, in chaos. And so I believe that the OWASP needs to have a plan. It needs to have a leadership team that leads. And I've heard that consistently from a lot of people that are very active and are considered to be influential in the team, don't believe that the board has and the leadership team have been leading. It needs to have guardrails. My model that I believe that OWASP needs to do is to run more like the Gates Foundation than it does, a charity shop. It needs to have a professionally funded and a professionally run back end that enables the grassroots community. That needs to provide services to them in a professional way so that the grassroots community can do the best work that they possibly can. And in some cases, that means ensuring that where the grassroots community doesn't act effectively or properly, like in the case of some of these poor top tens, they're dealt with through leadership so that the great work of people is appreciated and shown through. You have to have curation. If you don't have curation, you're going to have a garden full of weeds. I dealt with that in California when non-native plants took over the garden. It's the same here, right? You have to garden. If you don't garden, you wind up being overtaken by weeds.
I don't feel that there's a lot I can say to add to the comments that Mark's made on that. I think the OpenSSF and OWASP are two very different organizations. One of those organizations drives the agenda of the board, who happen to be corporate sponsors. And so long as that agenda aligns with what's good for the application security community, then it will go well. The moment it diverges, it won't. OWASP hasn't been in that situation. And as far as I'm concerned, should never be in that situation. We should always be doing what's best for the community and what's best for the users of the tools that are built by developers.
But you can't do the best when you're building for developers, Grant, when you're not actively engaging with the GitHubs, the Microsofts, the Googles, the people that build those tools and the people where the developers are.
I don't disagree with that. And I firmly believe we need to be interacting with these people, and we need to be taking their money, and we need to be building things that they can use. Or we already are building things that they use. The difference is I don't think they should drive the agenda.
Okay, but taking their money is also the wrong approach, and they're not going to be giving you the money on that basis. That's been proven out of where we are today. So I guess the question is like, is it more of the same, or do you want to modernize? That's the way I look at it.
Any questions we have for Grant and Mark?
Well, I actually have one, and it's more like a critical concern. And this is also, not to speak bad or something about the board and the work we did last year. I think we did, a lot of firefighting. We made good improvements, but if you look and hear the community indeed and what they want, and their, necessity for change in OWASP and get OWASP back on the horse seat, so to say, right? And thrive. You know, I'm only a bit concerned, like last year, you know, we didn't really achieve, from my personal opinion, like the strategic goals and made that change, right? And Grant, you're also part of the board, right? You were vice chair. So how is that going to be now different this year? I mean, how, yeah, you as chair now, how is that going to bring us further or implement those strategic changes, as last year you're also part of it? And yeah, to be honest, in my honest opinion, we didn't do a lot on the strategic level. So I'm really curious how you see that going to work for this year, if you're going to be chair.
Well, I think the only two individuals on the board this year who don't need to look hard at their responsibilities and their achievements from last year are Mark and Matt. The rest of us know that last year was difficult, that we had a lot of things that we needed to deal with, some of which were public, some of which we talked about and had to deal with the community, some of which were less visible. But all of that distracts from what we're trying to achieve. The conflicts within the board distract from what we're trying to achieve. The direction we're trying to go in needs to be something that we are universally behind. Not one person with a vision, driving that vision to whatever end is the result.
No,
So what
that
is
is
going to
true.
happen differently? I hope that we're going to work together. I hope that we will band together and follow the strategic line that we have.
But
Grant,
that is
I
indeed
don't
a bit.
think OWASP has a strategic line, and that's the point of run. You know, I think you've got to acknowledge, if you look at the people that are on this Zoom, this is the public board meeting Zoom. How many people from the community have turned up to this? I see Spiros. I see Martin, who of course has always been part of the community, was also part of the meeting last time. I see more employees of the foundation than I do the community. I'm afraid that's a failing community, and I'm sorry to call it out like that, but that lack of engagement, the amount of people that voted in the votes for the board director essentially said that people don't care who gets voted in. I think that's incredibly sad. And that's why I believe that you need change, because the same thing, it is not working. And to carry on doing the same thing or to make small incremental changes means that it will continue not to work. And I don't see how that is an okay solution.
But you also don't see how changing the way that we operate to be the same as OpenSSF just makes us OpenSSF.
I didn't say that we should be like OpenSSF. If I put that, I would have put it in the manifesto.
But that is the funding model that you'd like to go down.
It is a funding model that the board should go and investigate. It may or may not be the correct funding model, but the current funding model clearly does not work. OWASP does not have the resources. Spiros is rocking up for peanuts, right? This is not how things get funded. OpenSSF raised, or Linux Foundation at the time raised $6 million to go fix OpenSSL. I led the project to go to the White House for the open source security moonshot for SBOMs. We asked for $100 million. That money is coming through and is making a difference. So you need to be,
But
scrabbling
that
around
money
to
is
do
not
it
free,
and find
Mark.
brains so you can make an impact. And I think OWASP should be making an impact.
But that money is not free.
Nothing in life is free, Grant. Nothing in life is free. If you think people are going to hand over money and the board gets to do what they want with it, I'm sorry, but it's just misguided. Like, you need to be able to put constraints in, but you build the relationships in for that as well. And you find where there's common ground. The conversations that I've been having with GitHub is both places share the same goals, right? They want to make sure that their developers are building secure code. OWASP wants to promote secure code. Figure out a way to work together and figure out where those two things are aligned so that GitHub can enable OWASP to do it. and to align up to the same goal. That's not selling out. In no way should OWASP ever sell out in any sense. But there are ways to do those two things together. But the current model is simply not working. So we need to look at new ways of doing it.
I absolutely agree with that. What I disagree with
Oh.
is the idea that, well, we're burning through time, sorry.
No, I was just saying that Avi has his hand up. He just lowered it, but he wanted to ask question.
Well, it was really a question for Mark because yeah, we all agree that we need to change things. It's really a question of how we change things. But we can't really talk about what we're changing if we don't know or if we don't contend with what has been done. Grant obviously has been involved in the past year or several years with what's been done, and we can argue better or worse, but at least he knows all the things that are being done. Now, Mark, I don't think you are unaware of all the things that have been done, but it does feel like sometimes you're not necessarily including that or relying on some of the work that has been done on things. You have a lot of great ideas, but some of them have already been worked on. So I'm just curious how you relate to that, how you contend with the work that has been done, gone down in paths and so on.
I agree. Some of the things have been worked on, but they haven't been worked on to the point where they've made a difference, are they? Like things on the project team have been worked on. You still got projects that cause confusion to all of the developers. That happened. That was a clear message from the user experience thing. You've still got projects that shouldn't be live, that are taking away from the great work that people like Matt, people like Simon Bennett, people like Steve Sprangett do. So we've been talking, people have been talking about making an improvement to the projects for God knows how long. It hasn't been effective. I don't know all the details for sure, but what I do know is that OWASP needs leadership. And that's what I'm offering to bring to the table. I have all the connections to go pull all the right people together. And I have the ability to go mobilize the community. We cannot have a community where two people from the community turn up. It's a failure. I'm just calling it what it is. It's not acceptable.
But Mark, I don't think anybody's disputing that part. But my point is that a lot of the things take time. It's a process, right? And you can't say, oh, we have to change. It's not been done. So it's really a question of how much do you want to engage with the work that has been done on some of those things, even if it might not necessarily have achieved the impact or completed or even gone in the direction that you would have chosen. That sometimes is okay, but as long as it's actually improving and changing. So that's really what I'm trying to get at. And just as an aside, the fact that people don't show up to the board meeting, I don't think is indicative of anything. The not voting is. I agree. The not showing up to the board meeting, nobody cares about the board meetings.
Well, they may not do it OWASP, but they certainly do it other communities. So it's a problem because that makes OWASP unique that people don't show up. So I think what you have to do is take a step back. There's no doubt work has been done. Steve Ballmer once told me in a direct meeting, don't confuse effort and results. That is one of the most important things you need to sit and face yourselves in the mirror and understand.
Just want to say, Mark, that all of these things that you've highlighted are things that you can bring and work on, chair or no chair.
I don't believe they are, Grant, because what you've just indicated is that you, and this was your words, we are polar opposites apart in how we want this change to come about.
I want to be sure that the change that's necessary doesn't destroy the foundation, that the foundation survives our tenure on the board.
I think, Grant, with all respect, the foundation is collapsing based on what's happening right now. So I think the foundation is slowly eroding. It's in a spiral. And I'm sad and incredibly sad that I'm saying that. I birthed this thing 20 odd years ago. I think it's incredibly sad to be saying that. But that's not just me saying that, right? That's
based on what are you saying it?
Influential leaders. That is the most people that voted for the change in the recent elections. And I need to remind you of that. Like, by voting against that, you are saying to the most people that did engage and vote that they're wrong. I think that's a terrible message, and I'm sorry to have to call it out that bluntly, but I am.
I just want to say something that we have another 3 minutes before we start the voting, because we'll have to do for vice chair, we'll have to go for treasurer and secretary, and then we'll have to start the business as well. So if you have any further questions, please, we can just propose, raise your hand. We can take one more question. I assume no further questions. Sorry, I have to take this call because I'm just being mindful of the people that we have on the call as well.
Mhm.
Um,
Okay. So
so if-
Vandana, the way that this vote works is you call for votes and just go through each person in turn who they vote for. If
Yeah.
there is a tie, you get to cast your vote as the tiebreaker. If there is no resolution after that, another vote will be held.
Thank you so much, Andrew. So I'll call out the name that I see on my screen, and we would cast the vote for either Mark or Grant. So you'll have to take one name. And I will start with the name that I see on my screen first. Bill?
Excuse me, Vandana, just
Yeah.
state for the record what they're voting for on the recording. Thank
Sure.
you.
Yeah, so everyone, you are going to vote for the chair position. We're starting off with the chair position, and Mark Curfey and Grant Ongers are standing, and you'll have to take either Grant's name or Mark's name for it. So we are starting off with Bill.
Grant.
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 Avi.
Grant.
Matt.
Grant.
Mark.
Mark.
Glenn.
Mark.
Myself, Grant. So we have our new chair as Grant with 5 yeses from Bill, Avi, Grant, myself, and Matt. Congratulations, Grant.
Thank you.
So, Andrew, do you want me to call out vice chair, or Grant is going to take over and we'll do the honors?
Grant does the honors from here on. Thank you for your service, and thank you for hosting all of the meetings last year. It was very well done.
Thank you, Andrew. Over to you, Grant. Thank you so much, everyone.
And thank you very much. And in that case, I'd like to call for nominations from the floor for vice chair. Who would like to stand? Avi? Are there any other individuals who'd like to stand for the position? Going once. Going twice. Are there any questions that the board would like to put to Avi? There's a lot of discussion earlier. There we go, Glenn.
Yeah, so I'm wondering how you see yourself fit in this position and how you're going to, well, support Grant in this. As we are talking about, the community wants a new fresh wind, improvements. We have a lot of issues. So what will you focus on? What will you do?
Broad question. A lot of this was already covered. I do want to say that, you know, the previous discussion about chair, we kind of went in 2 directions. And I will say that I am strongly in agreement with Grant's approach here. And for that, you know, we might want to have the vice chair be a conflicting view, but I am and always have been a strong proponent of OWASP as community first, foremost, and primarily. And that means strengthening the community, enabling the community to do whatever the community needs and wants to do, and not necessarily dictate what the community needs, and strongly not go in the direction of vendor controlled or influenced or anything like that. So that's not really one topic. That's kind of a whole family of topics. This also applies to projects as well. Projects both need to have better enablement on the one hand, on the other hand, also need better guardrails. And I don't think these are conflicting. They need to be done together, hand in hand. We do have, as both Grant and Mark have said, we do have a lot of project cruft, I would even say. We initiated an audit of this last year, which I strongly pushed for because this is a known issue. And even though I haven't been that involved in all of the projects in the past, I see more and more this is something that needs to be, as Mark says, take a lot more of a leadership role on those projects. Not necessarily dictating which projects we need to have, but pushing more investment and more of those guardrails and making a fertile ground for more projects to come up from. We never know where those are going to come up from. And we don't necessarily have the ability to dictate that up front. The other area that I am going to and always have pushed for is better diversity, inclusion, and supporting as much as the community as possible, even those who don't consider themselves right now part of the community because they feel excluded. Some of the things that have already come up influence this directly, and I think we need to push a lot more about that and change our entire approach. One of the big changes that actually has been achieved by OWASP in the past, I want to make sure it doesn't backtrack some of that change, is the trying to translate from Hebrew in my head. So some of the toxic environment that has been in the past, and past board members, going back several years, have always said the board has been a toxic environment, and it hasn't been the past couple of years. The entire 2022 that I've been on, it has not been toxic. The many board meetings that I have joined in 2021, even before I joined the board, I have seen very little toxicity, although going back not much more than that there was. So, and it's not just the board, right? It's all the OWASP drama that you'll find a lot of going on. And that's something I want to make sure that we don't go backwards on. OWASP drama. You know, everybody says OWASP is what OWASP does. And that's one of the things that people historically have seen about OWASP. And that I think we have done, and I can't personally take credit for this, but there's something that I think has definitely been improved a lot over the past few years. So I want to make sure that continues, because that is a major factor of what the community is and how it grows and what it can do. Ultimately, the vendors are if you take the employer out of the vendors, it's community members, hopefully. You know, when we talk to vendors, I talk to them as other people that are in the community, and they happen to be working for a specific company. So it's not talking to the company, but it's talking to the community members in those companies. And if they love the community, they can support us through that. And can we do a better job of this? Absolutely. And definitely this is something that I would look to others for more improvement. It's definitely something that we have had a lot of success with in the Israel chapter as well, supporting AppSec Israel and other things like that. And that's really what I'm pushing for. Specifically as vice chair, I see myself as both support and backstop to Grant, stepping in, giving him additional bandwidth, but also being kind of a counter push to him. And he knows almost every discussion we've had, I've told him he's wrong, even though I agree with him in spirit. So that's really where I see it.
I mean, do you believe that you have been an effective board member?
I feel I would say like this: considering the constraints and the firefighting that we've had to do a lot of in the past year, I think I did an above average, above decent job. Specifically in the secretarial, I think I did a really good job on that, and I think members of the previous board can vouch for that as well. I don't think that we were able to hit all the strategic goals that we wanted to, or even really make massive progress on that. I think we are making that community aspect a lot better. But I think we totally got waylaid by things that were totally out of our control, like the bylaws, which sucked up a huge amount of time and effort and bandwidth, and totally put a block on the policy changes which we were trying to push through, and everything that comes out of that, including the AMS, whichever one gets chosen, but a lot of that gets driven by that. So this is somewhere between strategic and operational. I would call this tactical, and a lot of that did get locked in by that. Putting that aside, or putting a pin on that, considering that situation, yes, I would say yes.
So follow-up question, do you think that the board is operating effectively and appropriately right at this minute?
It's appropriately, yes. Effectively, I would say middling to B plus, simply because of constraints. Can we do better? Can we do a lot better? Definitely.
So the background to the question was that the board met yesterday. Everyone shared how they were going to vote, and the votes were completely different today. There were 2 people that voted fundamentally different today. I don't think that that's a board that's operating appropriately, and it's certainly not one that's operating effectively.
To be fair, I don't think the pre-votes yesterday and the votes now were done completely in a vacuum. I'll be honest, I don't remember. I was out of office, so I don't remember who voted which way. I don't remember everybody's votes anyway. But it wasn't done in a vacuum. Time has changed, and perhaps different arguments were made today or in the interim that might have changed people's minds. I can't really say.
But that was not what the board spoke about yesterday. That this was it spoke about that everyone was going to rock out with a united front, having all agreed how things were going to go, and everyone was going to line up behind that. So to find things changed today is not what I think should have happened today, despite having robust arguments, which I think are absolutely fine in public. So, yeah.
So Mark, I'll give you for example. My effective vote did not change. My conviction about that vote has. I was very torn yesterday. Less torn about it.
Not saying your vote changed.
But I'm saying the process leading up to that binary choice has changed. My conviction in the arguments, and yes, I was a lot more torn about it yesterday than I was today.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that.
Also, to be clear, the desire from yesterday's voting to today was to ensure that the outcomes would remain the same. They have not changed.
I don't think that's accurate, Grant. The intention was, and it was stated very clearly, that it was so things were on a united front, that things have changed, the votes have changed.
So a single vote changed.
The outcome certainly hasn't. But that is not a board operating appropriately or effectively.
I'm unsure how a board member changing their mind between an unofficial vote and an official vote is an example of poor board running. I fail to see that, because until the vote really happens, the board member is free to do whatever they feel is right, period.
The board member is certainly free to do it, but when the board agrees on and unites behind what they're going to do at a public meeting and then doesn't do that, I don't think that's a board operating appropriately or efficiently.
It feels like it's more united now.
I'm sorry?
It feels like it's more of a united front now than it was before. So I'm not
And it
clear
depends
on
at the
what you
level.
mean.
The board result, the vote result is the same. If one vote doesn't change the resulting vote or who's in what position, I'm not sure that that's relative or germane.
Okay, we can agree to disagree.
Are there any more questions for Avi? Are there any more candidates for the role of vice chair?
There needs to be a vote in the form that's in the minutes.
Yeah. So I
need a
will ask.
second.
I will ask for a second from the floor. The motion
second
that
it.
I'm asking for is resolved that the board elects Avi Douglan as vice chair. Vanana, you're seconding?
I'll second it.
Okay. Then, as I have a a wall of photos in front of me, I will go left to right. Glenn,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Harvey,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
Mark,
In lieu of no other candidate, I'm abstaining.
Vandana,
Yes.
and for myself, it's also a yes. So Dawn, for the record, that was 6 votes for, with Mark abstaining.
Thank you.
And I'm going to call for nominations from the floor for the role of secretary.
I'll nominate myself for the role of secretary.
Very good, Matt. Anyone else wishes to stand for the role? Does anyone have any questions for Matt?
I have a question, Matt. How much time will you be able to spend, and do you have any potential issues that may change your ability to commit to that?
None that I'm aware of currently. I have the full buy-in from my current employer for this position. That's why I'm doing this during the middle of my workday at what would normally be my day job. So I don't foresee any problem. I foresee that potentially getting better, actually. But as it stands right now, I don't have any concerns about having ample time. I was
Okay.
on the board in the past, so I have a rough idea of what the requirements are. So I'm not really concerned.
Thank you.
Matt, how are you with financials and auditing and accounting and all that stuff?
This is the secretary role.
Oh, sorry, apologize. Got confused. Wrong letter.
I was about to say, does it matter? But I won't.
For the record, I am still taking notes as previous secretary, and I just wrote that down in the wrong order.
No worries.
I
All
mean,
right,
you can
let
ask
me
the
rephrase that.
question.
How familiar are you with all the OWASP policies?
Somewhat. My knowledge is probably a little bit dated in that it's been a while since I've been on the board, but I've generally tried to keep up with it. I mean, between now and the February in-person meeting, one of my sort of personal goals is to read up on that, since I'm running for secretary, and presuming that I get it, I will obviously have a little bit of homework to do some catch up there.
I would recommend that if you are elected as secretary, make some time with me and I'll take you through the new bylaws and the new policy changes that enable the bylaws.
Cool. Yeah, and I did read some of that as an alumni too, so I'm somewhat familiar. But I did want to have a meeting with you to catch up, because you can give me the, if nothing else, the Reader's Digest version.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are there any further questions for Matt?
I don't have a question, but I would like to inform Matt that this is going to be a very interesting role wherein you would have to take down notes. You'll have to make sure that the meetings are not missed. A lot of times there are meetings which are said in the board meeting that yes, this needs to be held. So just that those things needs to be taken care of. Rest, I think it's a wonderful role where you'll be collaborating with a lot of people, including chair, vice chair, treasurer, and everyone, even Andrew.
Mhm.
Looking forward to it.
Matt, I'll be happy to walk you through how I track the notes in the minutes.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great. I'm
Well,
all for getting pointers.
With no further nominations from the floor, I'm going to ask for a second for the motion resolved that the board elects Matt as secretary. Thank you, Avi. With that being the case, left to right again, Glenn,
Yep.
Bill,
Yes.
Avi,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Vandana,
Yes.
and it's a yes from me too. Congratulations, Matt. You're really getting tips, but now you're officially elected.
Good. I'll have to make good on those tips.
And finally, I'd like to call for nominations from the floor for the role of treasurer.
I'll nominate myself, Bill.
Are there any further nominations? Thank you, Bill. That being the case, are there any questions for Bill?
Yeah, Bill, I have a question. Was socializing the proposed 2023 plan with you last week and reached out on Signal. I think you told me, correct me if I'm wrong, that you were unable to meet because you didn't have any time until after May because you're doing a master's degree. Are you able to commit the amount of time that is going to be needed as the role in Treasury?
Yes, I can make time to do the role of treasurer. I am currently doing a master's and it does take a lot of time. However, I've been doing the master's for the last 2 years. And during the last 2 years, I've been on the board. And during that time, the number of meetings I've missed, I think, is 1. So I've attended all the meetings, I've attended all the strategy sessions. So I definitely will make time to do the duties of this role.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Any
Now
further
I'll ask you
questions?
I'll ask Bill what I started to get confused about, Matt. I know you're good with auditing. That's clearly up your alley. What about specifically the financials and accounting and all that, accounting rules and stuff like that?
Yeah, I used to own my own business, so I'm familiar with all the accounting principles. I'll admit though, it's not my strong suit, so I would say that I could use some help from previous treasurer. But yes, I've in a previous life I had my own business and had to manage cash flow and whatnot.
So I would suggest that you have a meeting, like assuming that you get elected, with Shelby and I, and we'll take you through the books and any processes. I think we've already got a meeting with me, which is good. But fundamentally, I'm also ex-treasurer, so I can help you with in any specific things. And if you need some training or some books, I can make recommendations. And that goes for anyone who actually nominates for the role.
There are also 3 other former treasurers of the foundation on the board currently, and we're all happy to help out.
Well, yes, preemptively, I already set a meeting up with Andrew for later today to go over the treasury duties.
Right, that being settled and with no further nominations from the floor, I would like a second for the motion resolved that the board elects
I'll do
Bill
that.
as treasurer.
Bandana?
And then left to right again. Glenn,
Yep.
Bill,
Yes.
Harvey,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Vandana,
Yes.
and it's a yes from me as well. I think that concludes the election of the officers. Congratulations, everyone.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, everyone.
I look forward to working with you all. And for those who are on the
If this is a life-threatening
oh
situation.
goodness, great, go away, Alexa. For those who are general members, please don't assume that you can sit back and relax. We've got so much work to be done. I would encourage you to go with your passion and say, what would you like to see improved, and work on it with me. At the end of the day, basically, being a director is one of those great experiences, and not having any official duties frees you up to do other things that you actually are interested in that may not be so operational or fundamental to our governance. So do think about things that you might be interested in doing that you were elected upon in your agenda, as things that you may want to, work on whilst you're actually having this year.
I will be sharing with the rest of the board leading up to our meeting in Dublin, some ideas about what it is I think we should be working towards. Mark has already shared his vision and his view on what that should look like, and the areas that we should be discussing and moving forward as well. And hopefully we will come to a consensus on what that is during that strategy session. And I hope that those of you that are not in specific roles, and those of us that are, that we all take up the reins and pick something on that list that we need to run with, that we want to run with.
Okay.
Now, Andrew, do you want to do the executive report next? Or-
Yes.
Okay, if you'd like to share, or do you want me to bring it up?
Oh no, I've got it.
Okay.
Okay. Now, I have spent some time working on the financials. And so what I might do is, once we've been through the initiatives and operations, I'll get Shelby to run you through the narrative, but there are slides, I'll just show them to you very briefly, that go through the actual narrative with the graphical version of what's said in the actual narrative. So hopefully we'll get this presented to you earlier next month and every month thereafter. So bylaws, we are waiting upon the lawyers to give us a motion that we can present to all of the alumni. It will probably take the form of an attestation or some sort of statutory declaration rather than a motion. But fundamentally it's to present to the Delaware Chancery Court that the bylaws are going to be updated because of general consensus. There's some associated policies. All of these are now in GitHub as a pull request, ready to go as soon as we're ready to actually do the actual attestation or similar. I'll find out exactly what's happening. I've been waiting for about a week and a half for the lawyer to come back to me. He had some questions and I think he's consulting.
Okay.
The NetGuru website redesign has been taking a great deal of my time, so I don't have more for you. There's been about 20-25 hours worth of meetings. It's been quite in depth. It's been eye-opening. The quality of work that's been happening through NetGuru, care of Mark, has been astounding. Honestly, I would probably recommend, if there's an investment to be done this year, some sort of investment in the website redesign, at least the portions that are identified as being essential. We do have some spare money, as you'll see in the narrative. I would like to hire an additional staff member, but I think there needs to be some sort of executive session or a private session with the board to go through our structure. What is it that we're actually aiming for? Is it community? Is it projects? Is it, you know, what is it that we want to do? That should probably change the focus of what the website redesign is on. At the moment, they're working on projects because, quite frankly, it is difficult to find the good stuff. I also have spent the last couple of days just working on updating the slides and getting the narrative done. I worked over the weekend on that and that was fine. And to provide that more detail that was asked for. So there's that. If there's anything in any of these slides that you wish to have more information or more detail or laid out in a different way or presented in a different way, please just provide that feedback to us and we'll iterate with you. The idea of these slides is to provide an easy to digest oversight. It is not to provide you choices for operational matters. It is designed to provide you the information you need to understand if there's any risks, if there's any outstanding governance issues, if there's any outstanding financial issues, and discover them in an easy to digest fashion. We are aware that your time is limited and therefore we're trying to minimize the total amount of pre-reading. And that's the way these slides work. But if they're not presenting the information you need, please let us know and we will provide updates just like I've done for the finance side of things today. Operations, the bylaws, the ballot is basically ready to go. We just have to have the wording. So Dawn will be running the ballot. It will be more or less some sort of electronic signing, I believe. We'll see how it works once the lawyers get back to us with what we're supposed to be doing. With the Distinguished Lifetime Members 2023, all awards have been ordered, but there is a confirmation vote this particular meeting as an order of business. The spreadsheet that has the names in it is currently private. Once it's actually been announced, we will make the spreadsheet public. RSA finalizing the details so everyone can get there. I have yet to make my flights and hotels, and obviously that's leaving it to the last possible minute considering how difficult it is to get flights and hotels for RSA. So please, if you haven't already and you are planning to go to RSA, please work with Dawn. And with that, I'll pass over to Shelby. Shelby?
All right, thank you, Andrew. I appreciate it. I'm actually going to use your slides to present today. It was kind of you to put them together in that format, and I think it would be helpful to present the slides. But if anyone has any questions throughout the process, just let me know and I'll be happy to jump into a different format. All right.
I'll just give the board a little bit of a heads up here. I'll be working with GuideStar and Charity Navigator once the 2022 financials are ready enough for us to present to these folks to get updated transparency and guidance from GuideStar and Charity Navigator, because these are ways that Amazon Smile and other automated schemes work out of where the organization to be donated to.
Perfect. Thank you, Andrew. All right. So today I'm going to be presenting the 2022 financial position. This includes actuals through December of 2022 with a few caveats. First, I'll note we may have some bills that are meant for the fiscal year trickle in. This is inevitable with all clients, and I will work closely with Caitlin and in AP to make sure all the bills are entered. The second note that I want to make is that no bad debt expense analysis has been performed and we have not booked a reserve. We need to look at the open AR balances and determine what invoices should be written off. There's a slide on AR where we can talk more about this. Okay, so jumping into revenue on an accrual basis, total revenue year to date was $2,799,000 versus a budget of $2,155,000. You can see from the chart, most months in 2022 projected a loss, with the exception being June, September, and October. This is because we had planned to get revenue from a virtual EU event in June. Asia Pacific had budgeted revenue in September, and San Francisco revenue was incorrectly budgeted to be recognized in October. That's also why you'll see a large spike for revenue in November. So year-to-date corporate memberships came in at about $522,000, which was $272,000 over the budget of $250,000. Individual membership came in at $276,000, and that was $24,000 under the budget of $300,000. Donations of approximately $170,000 were $16,000 under our budget of $186,000. I will note that this is our line item in the budget that included a grant of $100,000 that we never received and we do not expect to receive at this point. So with that said, donations are about $84,000 ahead of budget. Event income was $1,829,000. That was $454,000 ahead of the budget of $1,375,000. The biggest driver is again our global AppSec in San Francisco. Actuals are $416,000 for registrations and $787,000 for sponsorships. So overall, this is $537,000 over the budgeted amount. And lastly, I'll note that merch and trademark income combined were under budget by $39,000. Okay, so this next slide reiterates the same figures, but you'll see the chart contains year-to-date numbers rather than monthly totals. So up until October, we were trending very close to budget, but October saw a slight dip, and that's because we budgeted to receive the revenue from San Francisco there, and we did not. We recognized in November when the event took place. So then you'll see revenue the following 2 months brought us over the top. For expenses on an accrual basis, expenses through December were $1,661,000. compared to a budget of $2,155,000. As you can see, we were budgeted to net around $200 in profit for 2022. In actuality, expenses were $494,000 under budget. So if we also included 90,000 of grant expenses related to the 100,000 of grant income that we did not incur. So in total, we were 400,000 under budget. Project spend was 16,000 under budget. Events are under budget by 444,000, again, due to the budget for AppSec San Francisco. So that budget included 520,000 of expenses expected, but expenses recorded to date are 84,000. So the largest portion of that variance is due to prior year spending for the event not matching up with the current year P&L. We're also waiting for the final bill for the Hyatt Regency in San Francisco. I checked QuickBooks and no bill has been entered as of today. So if we have one, if you could kindly send that my way so I can make sure it's accounted for, that would be great. Chapters and outreach were a combined 24,000 under budget due to underspending and the timing of YM platform fees. G&A was over budget by 60,000 due to a payment of pending legal fees, offset by underspending on the EU expenses when we compare that to the budget. And all other departments were combined over budget by 21,000. Again, this slide, it's the same totals I just noted, but it shows year-to-date figures in the chart. Aside from January, we were consistently underspending for the full year. For net income, net profit was $1,138,000. Our budget was only $268 profit. So you can see it's ahead by $1,137,000 due to a multitude of factors. What I've mentioned previously, income came in higher than budgeted for AppSec San Francisco. And then the timing of matching that revenue with the expenses from prior years caused this year to look the way it does in terms of profitability. Net income is down $214,000 from last month. And again, this is just the same data, just showing the chart on a yearly figure. Okay, so accounts receivable. AR in December is approximately $114,000. That is 7.72% of total assets. And of that, only 11% is 90 days past due. As I noted in the beginning, bad debt provision needs to be booked for current AR. My suggestion is to look at the 11% that's 90 days or greater past due, and then make a decision on what specific invoices should be written off. For cash increased slightly, 11,000 up from November, and has increased by $1,228,000 year over year.
With the AR, we've only got 11% over 90 days. Would you, under normal circumstances, consider any like that a reasonable amount for like not to consider like how aged would you expect a debt to be before you consider writing it off? Is probably my better question.
That's a really good question. I'm not sure if I have a specific metric since it's done differently company by company. What I would say is if we look at the invoices and we see a customer and we're like, oh, we know 100% they're not going to pay, then we could go ahead and book a reserve for that. But 11% is low. So if we decide we don't need to book a reserve, that should be fine too.
And in terms of the audit year, is it a good idea to think about taking any, is there anything in suspense or that has not been recognized yet that we should consider taking as a hit?
That's a good question. There is one item on the balance sheet that has a suspense for 2 expenses, and I've reached out to Caitlin. I need her to enter those into QuickBooks. She's
Mhm.
aware of what they are. She just hasn't had a chance to put them in yet. So other than that, we should be good. But I'm going to do a final scrub of the financials before we turn them over to the auditors.
Okay. So for the board's information, we haven't this is an external audit year. And so there are controls that you can basically ask the external auditors to pay attention to. It has been a while since we've had some of the controls evaluated, and I think it'd be worthwhile for us to obviously let them, as professionals who are supposed to be independent, choose their own set of things they're going to look for. We don't want a Sally or a same as last year. We want a good evaluation. But I do think there is an opportunity for us to make sure that if we haven't had certain sets of controls evaluated recently, then for them to have a deep dive or at least a good inspection to make sure that we're doing the right thing.
Absolutely.
Yep.
I agree with that, Andrew.
Yeah, we should never be afraid of having an audit.
No, they're supposed to help us be better.
Yes.
We're not just saying that because Bill and Matt.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so this gives you an indication that we do have the possibility of having an investment year, but I would like the board to be strategic in its investment. And quite frankly, like, for example, Spiros's request should be considered quite reasonably. But also, I don't want us just to splurge money left, right, and center. We should be trying to, if we're going to do an investment, it should be able to pay itself off, is what I'm trying to get across. In particular, if you look at the narrative, speaker travel might become quite expensive if we keep on opening it up and up and up. So we do need to be a bit cautious. I would recommend the board, when it's making recommendations for keynote speakers, that they are locals rather than remotes. The idea of a global organization is to foster talent wherever it may be. And if keynotes can be coming from local organizations, local sourcing, our travel costs will be a lot less, and it will demonstrate to the local audience that they have world-class talent in their area. They don't have to have the same people speaking to them time after time. So I just want to bring that to the board's attention that although we have money and we can invest it, we should be investing in the right things. Not every organization like DEF CON nor Black Hat provides the extent of travel that we do, and we're a very, very small organization compared to those two. So I just want to make sure that we're being prudent with money, even though we do have a fair amount of it at the moment.
Thanks, Andrew. Shelby, did you complete the operating reserves?
Oh, that's perfect. Actually, that's my next and last slide. Right here is the operating reserves. So you can see our cash balance is at $2,684,473. This is an 84% increase year over year. I would say that is a great accomplishment and a testament to the staff. Overall, I'll reiterate what Andrew said. This was a great year in terms of fundraising, building up that cash balance to allow the foundation room to think about where they want to invest those funds for the members. So. If you remove our accounts payable balance of $159,000 and the $68,000 restricted for projects, OWASP has $2,457,000 or 20 months of cash reserves, with the average operating expenses at approximately $121,000 a month. OWASP has 13.6 months of reserve, with $180,000 of the average total expenses. And then again, as I've mentioned before, the industry standard for the operating reserve is to have 6 months of expenses. That is all from me, unless anyone has any questions.
For other organizations our size, would you recommend that we invest the money in money markets, or would you suggest that we invest in our programs?
You know, I think we as a group at Virtual have been leaning away from the giving advice on investments. That would be up to you guys. I would probably go the project route, just because for money markets, I'm not sure.
Okay.
I don't want to speak on that.
Okay.
Anyone else have any questions for Shelby?
All right.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Shelby.
Thank you. I'll stop sharing my screen.
Okay. Grant, do you want to take over the share, because there's a few motions to be done?
Sure. Do you want me to share the motions that we have up, or?
It's in the minutes. I mean, sorry, the agenda. I can do it if you want, and you can just do the. Oh, yep, there you go.
It's quite okay. Okay, so the first motion that I see here is a motion to approve the Distinguished Lifetime Awards. Andrew, I believe that spreadsheet has been shared with the board.
Yes. Yes.
I trust the board has had a chance to look at the spreadsheet and have a look at the individuals that are up for nomination. I'd like to keep the winners of that award a secret, at least until Dublin, when they'll actually be presented with the awards. But I will need a second for the motion to resolve that the board approves the attached Distinguished Lifetime Awards for early 2023.
I'll second it.
I see a hand from Harvey.
I beat you.
Okay.
Thank you,
can
Harvey.
third.
If everyone has had a chance to look at the spreadsheet, I'd like to put this to a vote. And in the order that I see people now, Bill, you're first on my screen.
Yes.
Harvey?
Yes.
Vandana?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Glenn?
Yes.
And a yes from myself. So Dawn, that's unanimous. So that looks like the last motion.
No, there's one more. Motion to move the April board meetings.
Oh yes, indeed. Okay, so because of how April and December generally work for the board, and because it's in our bylaws, if we're going to move the date of a board meeting, it needs to be done so as a vote. So we'd like to move the April board meeting to Tuesday, April the 18th, and the December board meeting to December the 19th, so it doesn't conflict with holidays. So I'm looking for a second for the motion. Resolved, the board moves the April board meeting to Tuesday, April 18th, and December to Tuesday, December 19th, 2023. Thank you, Vanana. And is there any discussion on that? Is there any questions about that? Anyone have any issues with that before we bring it to a vote?
I'll just bring out the background that we may not have the financials for those months. I'll present them via electronic means as soon as we have them. But if there's any questions along the lines of financials, the board can always bring a special board meeting if they need. I don't envisage any issues, but that's the downside of holding it a tad earlier.
The upside is it does ensure that most of us are able to be present.
Mm-hmm.
If there are no questions, no discussions on that, then I'd like to bring that to a vote. And I'll go in reverse this time. Glenn,
Yep.
Mark,
Yes, sorry, I was on mute.
Matt,
Yes.
Vandana,
Yes.
Harvey,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
and it's a yes for me too. So again, unanimous. Thank you,
Excellent.
Dawn.
Thank you. Okay, Lauren is not well, but she'll take us through the event briefing and the global AppSec DC training splits because it has a significant impact on the profitability of global AppSec DC. So Lauren, if someone can make Lauren the co-host, please.
Looks like Dawn. There we go.
Yeah, I
Okay.
just sent it to her.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Dawn. Sorry. So as Andrew said, I am really sick, so please bear with me on this. We have a nasty cold going around our house, and I'm the last man down. So I did want to, and I don't know if we necessarily have to talk about this on the board call. I'm not sure if this is more like operations. But when I was going through the budget for DC, one thing that kept coming up is that the profitability of the training sessions, it can be very temperamental. And as I'm looking at these splits, and it looks like it is a large split, I did want to kind of talk about possibly reworking that because it greatly impacts not only the training, but the conference in and of itself, because depending on how I finagle these numbers, it would cut into the profit of the conference. So one of the main things is, I mean, basic profit, it comes down to your volume, your costs, and then your outgoing costs. So if we are going to do the profitability of this conference, I think that we need to take into account the outgoing expenses, especially in the volatile economic times that we're having here. Simply the cost of AV, the cost of food, it has gone up. That cuts into what we have. So if we're looking at it, one thing that I think we either need to look at the overall percentage that the trainer's getting, or we need to add up the cost of running the training programs, back that out of our training like what we bring in, and then that brings us our overall profit that we get. That's what we're bringing in when we remove. Sorry, you guys, I am so sick and I'm like talking in circles.
Okay.
And then basically whatever, once we back out the costs going out, what we're left, I think that's what we need to base our trainer splits on.
So the question is whether we change the percentage split with the trainers or whether we split profits with the trainers rather than revenue.
Exactly. Thank you for doing that much better than I could. I just think it's something that needs, and maybe again, I don't know if this is just operations or not. And we definitely don't have to do anything with it now because I would like to present a little bit better than when I am sick. But
so we could
it's
come up,
very temperamental. Like,
yeah. Sorry, we could come up with an operational model for like if the board decides that we split it via profit rather than revenue, we could come up with a model for next month and just make sure it's just, this is one of those times where financial risk is present and therefore the board, because fundraising through events is one of our major sources of income. I don't want to brush this under the carpet, but I do think it is pretty operational. Would the board be okay if we took this away and came up with a model that actually presented a profit? Avi?
I obviously, if there's any vote here, I'm going to abstain because I'm going to have to conflict out of that. My company does training at the conferences. Don't know if it'll be at DC, but in general, I'm going to conflict out. I do want to point out that, you know, whatever model you're changing here, I definitely think we need to be more profitable. That's straight up. do take into account the position of the potential trainers. Make sure you discuss with them and get feedback from them, because to be honest, it's not that profitable for trainers either as it stands right now. It's kind of, yeah, especially if you have to travel, it's borderline in many cases.
Yeah.
And a lot of the professional trainers will charge a lot more for their training than they would get from take Jim Manico, right? Just classic example, right? He charges a lot more for a training than he would get doing training at OWASP, even if you pack the room, the biggest room we have. So just as an example, it's not yours. I'm just saying that.
No, I agree. And for DC and moving forward. So after this event, we are coming out of COVID. So now we're looking at increasing our ticket prices. That was, and it's just like a 3% escalator year over year. But it was one of the ways that helped me right size that a little bit when looking at DC. But I also had to kind of strip down food and beverage and see what we could kind of do on our own in for AV and any associated costs along those lines. But if we are going to go more on a profit angle rather than revenue, I mean, one thing we could look at is adding in like the guest rooms and then obviously subtracting out of that. And then that's what we would split with the trainers. You know, we could do the totality of the training session and help them. I don't know about flights because, you know, for example, Josh is pretty far from DC. So, but we do understand that we have to cover, you know, they need to cover their expenses and their time too.
I also want to bring up something that Andrew, your predecessor, had tried one cycle, and I don't think actually stuck, is instead of having a split for the trainers, to have a fixed fee per day.
Yeah, we actually struggled to get trainers at all.
All right, I'm just pointing that out.
So, you know, if you're only getting 3 or 4 trainers, your profitability is even less. So the amount was probably too parsimonious. It was not enough. And there should be some reward for the trainers actually getting people, you know, bums on seats. There really should be some sort of incentive to fill the room. Vandana?
I have something to say. There are a lot of new trainers who say that we have filled the CFP and we haven't got the response. So how are we planning to handle them? Because we want new source of revenue and we want new people giving trainings. And a lot of people say that we are seeing only the same trainers at every conference. So how are we planning to resolve that?
That's an excellent question for the conference committee. Ah, damn it, Martin's left.
Martin's left.
Do you want to field it, Avi?
Yeah, you know, as the one who kind of led the CFT for Dublin and helped Juben on San Francisco as well, I'm in 100% agreement when it comes to the CFP and the speakers. I think I don't know if we need to have a newbie track, but we definitely need to have more first-time speakers and have more effort around that. With regards to training, I'm a lot more ambivalent because first-time trainers will not be professional trainers, quite by definition, right? And if somebody's paying a lot of money for training, and training is not just something you can do on the side. I'm a good pen tester, so I'll teach pen testing. Training is its own skill set. It's its own profession. And if you're not a professional trainer, I do not think we should be selling at high price points professional training that is not professional training. We do need to balance that with getting new trainers in as well. And I think Vandana, I think you're absolutely right that we don't need to have the same speakers over and over and over again. And with Dublin, we actually did make some changes with that as well to not have, you know, if all else being equal, we took the trainer that hasn't been there before, all else being equal. But we do need to balance that with having professional training as well. So
hey Abby, I'm sorry, a bus went by and I missed a piece of it. So maybe you just qualify. Did I hear you say that we should be intentionally trying to have more first-time speakers at conferences?
Speakers, yes. Trainers, no.
Surely we should be trying to have the best speakers at conferences, shouldn't we? Those are the people that provide you know, the greatest impact to the community. I mean, having a way to find more as extra tracks and giving people opportunities is fine, but surely it should be based on finding the best speakers, not new ones, right?
I would modify that with a small nuance. I don't know if you'll agree with me. The best talks. The best talks are not always from the most experienced speakers that we already heard 16 times before at the past 10 OWASP conferences that I've been at. It's not always that.
Yeah, sure.
If you get sucked too much into having repeat business, then you're going to have rehashed the same ideas over and over again. Whereas we do need fresh blood. We need fresh blood for speakers.
Totally. That makes sense. For me, it's a combination of both the speaker and the content. So that makes perfect sense. Cool.
Our current system is that the speakers are selected blind. It's a blind selection. So we don't, when our organizers who work on the committee to put the conference together select speakers, at least at the global level. Now, I don't know about local level. It's blind. All you see is their abstract. Although typically the more experienced speakers are the ones that have like very detailed abstracts and know what they're going to talk about.
Is that the way?
Matt has his hand up. Matt has his hand up.
I'm sorry.
No, thank you. I was just going to comment on what Avi was saying about trainers. I think one way to consider the whole training aspect at a conference is the number of speakers we have far outweighs the number of trainers. And I agree with Avi that we should be somewhat picky about our trainers. And I'm full disclosure, I've done training at OWASP before, so there's some bias there potentially. But I think it's also important to understand how much trainer that we pick has what reception they have with the people that are trained, and also how much they draw. Right? If we're repeating a speaker who has a very small draw, then we may want to rethink repeating that speaker. Or not speaker, excuse me, trainer. So that's just the thing I think as an organization, we should better track. I don't know how well we track that, to be honest with you. But it would be good to know that, speaker A or trainer A brings in a full house and trainer B doesn't, and weigh that in the decision to pick a particular trainer.
Yeah, anecdotally, that is something that we have looked at, but not in a robust manner, just kind of off ad hoc. And I just want to add one nuance to Bill. It's blind reviews. Blind reviews, blind scoring. The final selection was done taking into account the quality of the speaker as well, and trying to balance that. Just to be clear about that. And I also want to say that the most experienced speakers often phone in their abstracts more often than first-time speakers.
Yeah. Glenn?
Yeah, I was thinking like, do we actually have like some one-on-one like interview or like a snippet of the trainer, even like the newbies, right? Then we at least get a feeling in how they train, right? Because I do agree with you, it's a profession on itself. I'm also a trainer, so I get totally your concern. But yeah, I mean, maybe with a short intro and a short 15-minute look and feel, right? Like, hey, present and show some slides and whatever, would maybe increase that pool of trainers, right? That we actually can give a spot then. I was also thinking, like, is there something like train the trainer material that we offer to new people and people in the industry? And
We do not, but that is I wonder whether you've been looking at my my spider diagram, Glenn, of things we should be working on.
Yeah, this is also something I actually did and set up, at the company I work for. Because yeah, you need to have like, building these trainers and getting them there, because otherwise they will never learn, right? And get the exposure, and we have too little of those trainers.
And bringing this
really like
back.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry, Avi, I'm about to close the discussion. So what you're going to say?
Glenn, I really like your idea of taking those snippets for trainers. Right now, we do ask for potentially videos and some slides. It varies, but we do review that for the call for training. But actually asking for a video or a snippet of your presentation style, especially for first-time trainers, first time at OWASP, I think is a great idea. For speakers, especially first time and early speakers, we have in the past offered mentorship and speaker support as well. And I think we need to do more on that.
So wrapping this back around to Lauren's original question, can the foundation consider alternatives here? Andrew, I believe it is an operational matter, but as a board, we are very keen to see what the options are. I'm very keen to get involved in the discussion, because this is one of the key ways in which we both move our mission forward by educating individuals, but also how we as a foundation make some money that we can spend on other things like our projects. So we're very keen to find a solution that results in both those things being better.
Yep, no worries. I'll take it offline with Lauren, and we'll present something to you for next month.
Cool.
All right, so I am gonna share my screen and we'll kind of go through the slides. Okay, so my Mac is not letting me. Can anybody else do it? It says my security privacy settings.
Okay, I'll do it.
Thanks.
I'm assuming that people can see my screen.
We can.
Okay. We just need to be quick because of Spiros's request.
Yes, I can be very quick. All right, so just a quick run through of the Global AppSec events and the days. We are on pace. We're doing great for Dublin. 300 attendees, attendees is our goal. As of this morning, this is a little bit delayed. As of this morning, we were at 230 attendees, and then we have 50 trainees, whereas our goal for trainees is 60. So we are just about there. One thing I do want to highlight, we are not expecting to turn an event in Dublin. This was already a venue that was high priced. Kelly and I did what we could with it by reusing meeting space, etc. But the foundation did decide to include some travel costs and guest room accommodations that was not originally in this budget. And because it was so tight, unfortunately, it is bringing us into the red, if not just like $1,000 profit. But moving forward, I think that this won't be an issue. I think that a lot of this really just had to do with the venue. For Global AppSec DC, we did sign the contract at the Marriott Marquis. So we're going to be flipping this program. It's going to be conference days first, followed by the training days. And this is strictly due to the very limited availability in Washington, DC during this quarter. The call for papers is open, call for volunteers is open, and the website and registration is currently open as well. As you can see here, we've already picked the locations for 2024, 2025, and 2026. We're currently reviewing proposals for Global AppSec EU in 2024. So we're hoping to have that finalized, hopefully before Dublin. Any questions on this one? No, we can go to the next slide, Andrew. Global AppSec days, we are pretty much on track. One thing I want to highlight is AppSec Days Singapore's. We are in touch with the local chapter leaders, and they're currently leading towards Q4. They're trying to kind of backtrack on another event that's taking place. We just heard back from them this morning. So more will be coming on that, but as for everything else, everything's going well. We have AppSec Israel on there, the German OWASP days. Snowfrock is back after they canceled last year due to COVID.
As
So
Avi just pointed out, there's a slight typo there. It's just AppSec Israel.
Yeah,
okay. All right. We can go to the next one.
Next slide.
Yeah. Dublin, I think I pretty much covered this. The only update is the attendees is now currently around 230, and then trainees are at 50. But other than that, everything else is pretty much on track, and we are no longer thinking we're going to have to drop 2 of the trainers due to registration. It seems to have picked up within the last week,
Excellent.
and that's that. DC on track, call for papers, call for training, volunteers, everything is good to go here.
Excellent.
If we can do a train the trainer program here, maybe during the training days, I just want to put that out there that would be great if anybody wants to do it. And then we can move on.
Excellent.
Pretty sure I heard Glenn volunteer for that.
Yes, I think he'll check. He'll check into it. LastCon is on hold. There's a date issue. We're looking at dates. But it will be moving forward. You can skip through this. Snowfrock, no issues at all, currently on track. We just moved the previous contract into the 2023 year, and many of the sponsors are moving as well.
Excellent.
And then AppSec Israel. Avi, I saw you just sent out the call for sponsors. So that is out.
Had a couple nibbles already.
Okay, we'll update for the next board meeting then for the slides. German OWASP days. This one we just put out there. I know they're working on the registration, so probably by our next updated slide deck, we'll have more populated areas as for attendees and trainers.
Excellent. I think that's it.
Okay.
It is.
All right. Does anybody have any questions on the event side?
Hi, I actually have one small question. AppSec San Francisco was not recorded. The talks were not recorded other than the keynotes. Are we planning on a recording in Dublin?
Yes.
Okay.
We are.
Is that with Cooper?
It is with Cooper.
Excellent. Okay. That was
And we do have
Yeah.
to find someone if we want to do the same in San Francisco, or not in San Francisco, but in DC. We're hoping to find another volunteer. So if you happen to know of anyone in the stateside, let us know.
Excellent. Yeah, I mean, realistically, the proposal for recording all of AppSec San Francisco was eye-watering. So it was just not possible. It would be lovely to be able to do so. Okay, we've got 10 minutes for Spiros's thing. So Grant, do you want to take back control?
Sure. Spiros, are you going to be presenting something?
Spiros, we can't hear you.
Muted. Okay, sign language, Spiros. How much? No.
I can hear you.
That's better.
Fantastic. Okay, sorry. Zoom on Linux. I swear, 2023 is gonna be the year of Linux on the scope. So let me share my screen and do this properly this time. Okay, can you see me? Can you see my screen?
We can.
Awesome. So, hi everyone. Hi board. I'm Spiros. I am part of the Integration Standards Project. The Integration Standards Project kind of convened 3 years ago, maybe less, to unify the information in OWASP.org and make it easier to find. Out of that, we created OpenCRE. CRE stands for Common Requirement Enumeration, and CRE is currently pretty much a knowledge graph of meta information on OWASP, and in more generic terms, the security community. So far, we've managed to map together standards and standard closest to each other so you can find information easier. OpenCRE.org does not hold information. It just points to other websites where information lies. That's what I talked about just now. A lot of our mappings are, or most of our mappings are automated. We have a core set of manual mappings. Eventually, we would like to move to completely automated mappings so that the standard OpenCRE becomes completely self-maintaining. We have managed to create strategic partnerships with other initiatives. We are one of the core projects of OpenSSF's like Education Committee for Developers. We work with the Cloud Security Alliance, and spoilers, like not spoil anything, but we are releasing a major mapping that involves governance, SAM, and the CSA's CCM framework during Dublin. Not in a talk or anything, just gonna make it public. And we have a relatively easy to use API. We have a front-end application supporting this API with searching functionality, which allows people to search for anything they want. And in true OWASP spirit, we are open data and open source. We're looking for a grant to improve the user experience in what we do in like our website, and it is very much in line with what both Grant and Mark have been saying. This will allow essentially OpenCRE.org to become a singular, very easy to use, comprehensive and automatically searchable resource for all of the OWASP information, but not only, it allows it to expand beyond OWASP. These are the 7 specific tasks that we are looking to build with this specific grant. Maybe the most interesting one to this conversation might be the Wayfinder 2.0. You've definitely seen the Wayfinder we made as part of like version 0 of CRE. We expanded it. We want to expand it and make it automatically created from OWASP.org GitHub metadata. To do this, it requires more time than I have available as a volunteer, and more skills that I have available as a security person who happens to be able to read React documentation. So I would ideally like some UX research to be done on OpenCRE.org, some new design decisions coming out of that, and somebody to implement those design decisions. I have a quote is about $10,000, and that's all. And that's the outcome, which I already talked about. So in the interest of time, I would like any comments, or what do you think?
Harvey's got a question for you.
So I'm not sure how up to date you are with the work that NetGuru have been doing, but what they have been doing is essentially the navigator on the projects page. So there would definitely be a bunch of duplication there. Mm-hmm. That doesn't cover everything. It covers projects and not indexing stuff elsewhere. One of the other things that came through in the user research was that because there is information in multiple websites, users find it hard to navigate. I 100% see the value in OpenCRE, but what I would suggest, and I guess this is down to Andrew as to where you want to invest the money, is that the people that do the work are the NetGuru people, so they can ensure that A, it's not duplicate, and B, ensure that those two things work together. So I would support the work being done, but I think it's important that it's done because it's done in unison with the other work that's happening on projects to avoid duplication and make sure the two things work together. If that makes sense.
That is fantastic. I had accounted for that, for something similar, if not exactly the NetGuru people doing this work. That's why in the statement of works that I've uploaded as part of the grant proposal. There is no entry on who will do the UX, because I wanted first to work with the people who are already doing UX research for us and see exactly what overlap there is. So yeah, thanks for the comment. That's great.
The downside is I doubt it will come in at $10,000, to be honest. But we can ask.
And it may also be part of the bigger redesign that we intend to do anyway, Mark, especially as the right now, the Wayfinder is the best of the terrible ways to find projects. And I'm sure Spiros would be very happy to have actual UX people working on building a user experience for his users. Avi, you got your hand raised. Sorry.
I'm not even sure how relevant this is, my question anymore. But Spiros, you mentioned $10,000. Was that just for the UX? Is that just for the grant to have you and the project team working on this? Is it cover all of that or what?
So I have budgeted £7,000 for implementation. I think £7,000 comes down to 8,500, something like that, and which leaves very little for UX research and redesign. But so NetGuru will need, if we hire NetGuru to do redesign of OpenCRE, that will need to be another discussion. But perhaps we could take the learnings that NetGuru has done from OWASP.org and apply them to OpenCRE. It's a bigger conversation we can have offline. But yeah, that's it. Most of the money implementation, not most of the money design.
Okay, so effectively, most of that 10,000 Spiros is to buy your holiday time to work on this project.
Not mine. To hire a professional React developer who can create proper frontends. My time in OWASP is voluntary, and I'm keen for this to keep being like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it.
Sorry,
I
Avi.
just follow up with Spiros. Just so who would actually be doing the work?
It's the person who has already done some work on the project. His name is John. It's one of the existing project volunteers who, as Grant very well put it, we buy his holiday time. So they're familiar with the project. They are a senior front-end developer, giving us a massive discount just because they're interested in OWASP.
Thanks. Glenn?
I'm just thinking, what is currently the status actually within OWASP of your project? Is it lab or flagship?
We're not flagship. I'd love us to be flagship at some point. We are, I think, above lab. I think we're one step below flagship, if memory serves.
Okay, and Shelby, what is actually the room that we have currently budgeted for this year for funds for projects?
Let me pull that up. I don't have it in front of me at the moment.
I hope with this work, we come closer to achieving flagship. If not, we become flagship.
Mm-hmm.
So in 2023's budget, as of right now, we have built in about 60 grand for project expenses.
As I mentioned, we do have the option of doing some investment outside of the budget, but I would like it to be, I think this is a good way of spending money to get someone up to the flagship level, but also provide a very useful service. So many risk managers struggle to find what needs to be done, and just simply saying, does this need to be done? Is this something we've already done? OpenSeries answers those questions, and if it can be done in a way that they can consume, that'd be amazing.
It also fundamentally changes how projects interact with each other. Speaking as a project leader now, I'm not redesigning Cornucopia to map to the new version of the ASVS because I'm going to use OpenCRE to do that, right? And that's ideally how all projects should be able to consume this resource.
Yeah,
So it's an
indeed, and
investment in more than just what we're doing now.
ideally, also in the future, we want to actually use OpenSeries as the data engine for our checklist wizard and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I definitely see the good things that are happening there, right? And then the impact that it can have. I'm just indeed wondering, about the budget, of course, as my old role as treasurer, and I know we don't have a lot of budget, so I just wanted to make sure how much that actually would take from the pool. But okay.
So this would have to be considered an investment because it's going to take substantially more than, I mean, even if it was just the 10,000 of the 60,000, 1/6 of the total project budget for the year isn't going to go very far. Mark will tell you that to do this properly, Neku is going to charge us far more than that if they're going to charge us at their normal rates. But it does need to be done properly because UX is important for how people can actually use something like the Wayfinder. Sorry, Avi, you got your hand up.
So two things. First of all, it should be noted that flagship project is not flagship status is not a function of funding. It's a question of board strategy. With that said, I kind of feel like it should be at some point. I think when we have a better picture of what it can do. As far as the funding, I think we need to rework what is actually being covered here, because if there's, as Mark says, there's overlap here with the NetGuru work on the website. I don't want to see that duplicated, both in funding investment and also time, confusion, duplication of where should I go as a user. I now have 2 Wayfinders. So I would like to see how that we can coalesce that into a single cohesive vision.
Yeah, this is primarily the reason that we wanted Spiros to talk first, because actually on the agenda, Mark's feedback on NetGuru would have been next. Are there any specific questions around how Spiros wants to spend this money, or given that there is a fairly large overlap with other things that we've already started discussing, do we have the time, Andrew, to have Mark run through the NetGuru stuff?
I do, but if there's going to be more votes, Dawn actually has a medical appointment that she needs to get to.
Unfortunately,
so-
I can't stick around any longer either because the meeting's gone over, I'm afraid.
Okay.
If I make you, excuse my voice, if I make you host, Andrew,
Mhm.
and I drop off, will that affect the recording?
No.
Okay.
And
But
Andrew,
if Mark needs to go, then
yeah, Andrew,
perhaps
with
we should.
respect to I'm sorry, there's a delay. With respect to NetGuru, Andrew, you've been involved every step of the way, so you totally comfortable in you presenting all the material. I have to run to another meeting.
Okay. The reality is that do we vote on the suggestion for Spiros, delegate it to me as it's within my spending authority, or ask that Spiros works with me and then we come back to the board for next month? I mean, how time sensitive is this, Spiros?
In the not time sensitive, in the sense that the more we wait, the more the project, like the less love the project gets. And because it's a public project with people who are already trying to use it, we get more standards in with the bad UI, which makes it less likely that people will come back to see it. If we want to leave it for next month, that is also fine. We can also meet in vaguely 3 weeks in Dublin and discuss this issue.
Okay. I would suggest that we've got some hands. We've got Avi.
I think you were about to say what I wanted to say. I would suggest to rework this together with you, Andrew, to see what is already duplicated and straighten that out. And then I think based on that, I think it would be reasonable to, if it's within your spending limit, go ahead and approve that. I mean, that's within your prerogative there. But I would actually consider maybe doing even higher budget, because I think to do this right will cost a lot more. That's the point.
Okay, I'll work with Spiros. Spiros, just make a time with my calendar, and let's talk about what we can do. I can give you more of an information about what NetGuru has been doing and where we could reduce duplication.
Sounds
Hang on.
fantastic.
Glenn, you have a question?
I also wanted actually to say the same. There's no point on waiting. It is in budget of Andrew to sign, and indeed Andrew already has, like Mark said, the information what the other party is doing. So if there's no duplication, right, then I would say move forward with it. Let's not wait and waste another month to wait.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you
I
very
get the
much.
feeling that's a fairly general consensus, Andrew.
Yeah,
So,
that sounds good.
so Spiros, work with Andrew so we can figure out exactly what would fall into the things that we would expect NetGuru to be doing anyway, and then see what's left over, and we can make sure that you get the money to do that.
Thank you very much, Bert. Really appreciate it.
Are there any other items? Does anybody need to bring anything else to the attention of the board? If not, then I'm going to look for a second to close the meeting. Well done, Avi.
I'll go for that.
So it is moved by me and seconded by Avi to adjourn. Those in favor say aye. Aye.
Awesome. Thank you, Peg. And congratulations to all the new officers.
Thank you.
Right. Thanks all.
Thanks all.
No worries.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye-bye.